Racism strikes in the gayest place on earth. People who live in and around Wilton Manors like to think we live in a bubble of acceptance and inclusiveness. Well, that perceived bubble has burst. In this week's SFGN online and on stands tomorrow, I report on racial attacks towards performers at Wilton area clubs. I speak with LeNora Jaye, who, along with Antonio Edwards, were victims of a vile racial attack last week. Both are people of color. I also speak with the new manager at LeBoy, who's seen degrading behavior and verbal attacks on dancers of color for years. He once was a dancer himself and is using his new position to crack down on customers who get out of line. Some will find this story shocking. You know who's not shocked? The performers. Antonio and LeNora both say the reality is Wilton and South Florida are not nearly as welcoming as the brochures would have us believe. You can read the entire story in this week's SFGN on stands and online tomorrow, and I really hope you do.
Those dreamy blue eyes.
Well, oh dear.
I just could hear you say
we saw Antonio's post, right, on Facebook a couple days ago telling the world about what had happened at one of their gigs.
Yeah, and LeNora is a very good friend of mine. She's my Pisces sister, and I just had a conversation with her just on the way up to tape the show today. And what she said also to you, I think, in the interview, is that this is not, it's not such an uncommon occurrence. There's no surprise in this. She and Antonio and other performers of color have been dealing with these racist microaggressions for decades. And it's, as you pointed out in your article, or you alluded to in the story, they've been dealing with this kind of behavior in this area for years. For years. She's been at one of the clubs she's at for almost a decade, and she deals with this kind of thing on a regular basis. And she said when the incident happened.
So can we not say what the incident is?
Yeah, I'm wondering.
Can you please? Can you just set
well,
the stage?
there was,
I'll say it. If
yeah,
you want.
there was a person who was very inebriated, and it was at the last song of this show. And this is a person that she had met there before a few months ago, and he became very agitated and whatever, and came up to them at the end of the show, and then referenced, "I don't want any N-word songs in here, any N people singing them." So it was very direct and to the point that he wanted to make. So LeNora said that immediately she has a lot of very, very supportive fans and patrons, and she said there was a line of big, buff, muscular guys ready to, as she said, to tear up his entire ass.
To kick some ass. And also the employees there at the establishment were all
totally
went
supportive.
to her
And
immediately as well.
This person, this is very interesting also, this person was banned from the premises 7 years ago. 2014.
So does that go away after
But
7
because
years?
there's new management, and the person was presenting differently than this person normally presents. So he was not even recognized as how he's normally dressed.
Yeah.
So he went unnoticed.
Yeah, well, bar staff turns over.
In 7 years, of course.
Yeah.
But even had it been the staff that was there 7 years ago, they might not have recognized the person because he was presenting in a totally different way than he usually does.
Yeah. Well,
but I think, not to hog the conversation, but I think the important part of this is that it's yet another eye-opener, as if we need one, because we have eye-openers every day, every minute, every hour.
Yeah.
And it's just part of a bigger picture of systemic racism that is just pervasive. And that's what we need to address.
Yeah.
We like to think that we're in this bubble, especially as a white person myself, that we're in this bubble of being able to choose to really only engage with white people who we think of as not being racist. And as a person of color, you don't get that same privilege because a racist problem is not with me. It's with people of color. And so as a person of color, your bubble is continuously being broken, and your people are continuously invading your space and giving you issues just for the sake of bigotry, in the way that I don't have to deal with, and so I have the privilege of being able to only engage with people who are like-minded in that way.
And you're still young, honey, because you're going to see stupidity and racism
of course.
In the future.
And I do.
Remember this conversation when we talk about that,
And racism doesn't have to be like someone being attacked, right? Like you said, microaggressions,
exactly.
right? Like microaggressions are pervasive everywhere in this community, right? Like I'm a pretty white passing Latino, and I get them all the time. I get them,
really?
yes,
Wow.
all the time
Or
from
people will
donors,
say,
people who I work with,
dumb
people.
stuff in front of us.
Right.
It's like, wow, just because we pass.
And this is another comment LeNora made. She said she was reading the comments on Antonio's post, and there were so many. It's the most comments he's ever gotten on a post. And there were some people she thought, you have got some nerve even making a comment because I have had microaggressions from you, bitch. I mean, so.
It could be so ingrained that people making the microaggressions don't even realize
that they're doing it.
The microaggressions. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of them do, but I can see how some people, it's just the way it's always been, which is, of course, it's not as an excuse.
And we're a pretty white presenting table up here talking about it, even though we were Latino and Latina. We are,
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. And, stories like this have to remind us that we are not as far as we think we are. BLM is so important, and we can go on and on. LeNora Jaye, we love you here. And thank you for getting back up on a stage the following day. That's the kind of badass that you are. We love you.
New Yorker.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Lara are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBT